When someone attacks your character, there is there's a very specific physical reaction that just happens in the human body.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like your heart rate spikes, your jaw clenches up, you get that awful cold sweat going.
Right. The blood just rushes straight to your extremities. Fight or flight kicks in immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I mean, it's totally involuntary, right?
It is. It's purely biological. Your body is basically preparing for a physical altercation, even if the threat is, entirely verbal or social.
Wow.
Because the brain, in that initial fraction of a second, it doesn't really distinguish between a physical predator and a social predator.
That makes so much sense. Because you really do just want to strike back. I mean, you want to grab a megaphone and clear your name.
For sure. Or worse.
Right. Or if we're being totally honest, you want to just ruin the person who is trying to ruin you.
Yeah.
We want to retaliate.
Yeah, retaliation is pretty much the default human setting.
It just feels like the only viable option when you are backed into a corner like that.
We crave that immediate visible vindication. We want the scales balanced, and we want them balanced right now.
And usually in front of a very large audience.
Yes. We want everyone to know that we were right and the other person was just totally in the wrong.
Well, welcome to Reform Thinking. Today, we are taking a deep dive into an ancient text. We're looking at Psalm 7, and it honestly flips that entire script.
It really does. It's a massive shift in perspective.
Yeah, so our mission today is to look at the anatomy of an ancient lament. We want to see what happens when you hand the gavel over to a supreme judge instead of just taking matters into your own hands.
And we're going to be pulling from some great source material, including notes from the Faithlife Study Bible, right?
Right. We're going to unpack how this text handles cries for justice, personal accountability, and the righteous judgment of God.
Which is heavy stuff, but so relevant.
So relevant. And to you listening right now, I want you to think about a time you faced personal attacks, or maybe even some kind of systemic injustice.
We've all been there.
Yeah, we have. And like we said, the natural human reaction is just to hit back. But this deep dive offers a masterclass in a completely different approach.
What stands out to me from the very beginning is the sheer restraint required to do what the writer is doing here.
Oh, totally.
It is the absolute opposite of our modern instinct. You are consciously deciding to, step out of the judge's seat.
And we're about to run into some really startling imagery today to illustrate that.
Oh, yeah, it gets intense.
We're talking mysterious musical terms, predatory lions waiting to literally tear someone apart.
Real curses of death, too.
Right. And this incredibly graphic biological anatomy of wickedness, it is intense. And honestly, just reading through these sources, I was struck by how visceral the language actually is.
Yeah, I mean, it is not a gentle pastoral poem by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all.
It's basically a battlefield prayer. The emotion is raw, it's unfiltered, and it's highly volatile.
So let's just open the text and look at the title. Because usually, psalm titles give us this neat little historical box to put the song in.
Usually, yeah.
But this one is incredibly puzzling. It says, a Shiggaion of David regarding Cush, a Benjaminite.
Right, the infamous Shiggaion.
Yeah, I saw that word Shiggaion, and it completely threw me off. Because most of these texts have these majestic, orderly musical directions.
Like to the choir master or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, spot on. But this word implies something entirely different.
It really does. And the honest answer from historical scholars is that the precise technical meaning of Shiggaion is, well, it's unknown.
Because we don't have ancient sheet music lying around.
Right, we don't have ancient Hebrew musical dictionaries. However, linguists point out that the root Hebrew verb used here is likely shaga.
Okay, and what does shaga mean?
It means to wander or to go astray.
To wander. That's so interesting. That makes me think of someone pacing back and forth in a room when they were having a panic attack.
Oh, that's a great way to picture it.
Yeah, because the thoughts are not linear. They are erratic.
That is a highly plausible way to interpret the musical direction. We actually see a similar term in the Bible over in Habakkuk chapter 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it suggests a rhythm or a melody that is not your standard, steady, calm, predictable march. It wanders, it jumps around.
It shifts abruptly.
Yeah, it's designed to mirror the internal turmoil of a mind in distress.
Wow. It feels like the musical equivalent of hyperventilation.
That's a perfect analogy.
Your mind is just racing, you cannot catch your breath, and the music is reflecting that sheer chaos.
Yes.
And this feeling of a relentless hunt, this panic attack, it doesn't just come from nowhere. It is tied to a specific hunter.
The guy mentioned in the title.
Right, the title names him as Cush, a Benjaminite. Now, I went down a massive rabbit hole trying to figure out who this guy was.
Good luck with that.
Right, because David had plenty of famous enemies. I mean, we know all about Saul, we know about Absalom.
Goliath, obviously.
Yeah, Goliath. But I could not find a single historical record of this Cush guy. Why write a song about a literal nobody?
It's a great question. I think we have to look at the tribal dynamics of the time to really make sense of this.
Okay, walk me through that.
Well, the text specifically identifies him as a Benjaminite. And we know King Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin.
Right, and David was from the tribe of Judah.
Yes. So during the years David was on the run, the political tension between these two tribes was just massive.
So they were basically at each other's throats.
Absolutely. Saul's loyalists would have been highly motivated to spread propaganda and, malicious rumors about David.
To discredit him.
Right, to discredit him and maintain Saul's grip on the throne.
So Cush is basically a partisan political operative. He's a guy running a smear campaign.
Precisely. He is likely a loyalist hurling false accusations at David to ruin his standing among the people.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here is the brilliant part about him being lost to history.
What's that?
Because we know nothing else about him, Cush becomes an archetype.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he is the universal figure of the slanderer. This strips away all that highly specific historical baggage and makes the text universally applicable to the reader.
I hear that, but let me push back a little.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't stripping away the historical context kind of rob the poem of its reality?
How do you mean?
Well, it makes it sound like a generic fable instead of a real man running for his life.
Oh.
If I am dealing with a real person spreading lies about me at my job, I don't want a fable. I want something grounded in reality.
I totally see your point, but I would argue it actually does the opposite.
Really? How so?
By giving us his name and his political affiliation, Cush, the Benjaminite, it grounds the text in a very gritty, real-world political conflict. We know it happened. We know the stakes.
Okay, true.
But by not bogging us down in the minutia of, what Cush said on what specific Tuesday, the text allows you to insert your own accuser into that slot.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, any false accuser in your life, anyone spreading malicious lies about you, that person becomes your Cush.
The anonymity of the specific accusation creates a template.
Yes. A template for anyone suffering under the weight of slander.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh.
You feel the reality of the threat without getting lost in the biography of the attacker.
Yeah, for sure.
And you really feel that threat right away in the first verse. David opens this wandering, erratic song by saying, "In you I have taken refuge. Save me from all who pursue me."
And the vocabulary there is very telling.
Yeah, I noticed the Hebrew word for pursue here is radaf.
Yes, radaf. It's a very common term in ancient Near Eastern texts for military opponents or hostile forces.
So it's not a friendly game of tag.
Far from it. It paints a picture of a relentless, exhausting chase. You are not dealing with a casual disagreement over a cup of coffee. You are being hunted.
Which totally explains the panic attack rhythm of the music we talked about.
Right.
And this pursuit leads right into verse 2, where the imagery gets incredibly dark.
Very dark.
The writer says, "Or he will tear me apart like a lion, dragging me away with no one to rescue."
It's terrifying.
It really is.
Yeah.
And looking at the source material, there are cross-references here to Psalms 22 and 57. The writers of these ancient texts are constantly comparing their human enemies to lions waiting eagerly for a chance to attack and destroy their prey.
We really have to actively step out of our modern sanitized view of wildlife to grasp the weight of this metaphor.
What do you mean by sanitized?
Well, in our context, a lion is a majestic animal you watch from the safety of a vehicle on a safari.
Right.
Or through a thick glass pane at a zoo.
Right, they just sleep in the sun all day.
Yeah, but in the ancient Near East, a lion was a visceral, daily, existential threat. Shepherds literally lost their lives to them.
Oh, wow. So it is not a noble king of the jungle scenario. It is a horror movie.
It is an absolute nightmare. A lion strike meant sudden, violent, inescapable destruction.
Because they don't just walk up and challenge you.
No, they are ambush predators. They do not challenge you to a fair fight in broad daylight. They wait in the reeds, hidden, until you are completely vulnerable.
Man, the psychological parallel here is just striking.
Also,
Well, think about modern reputational destruction. The feeling of being hunted and torn apart in the public square.
oh, yeah.
You have opponents, whether it is a highly toxic online environment or a cutthroat workplace, and they are just waiting eagerly for a single misstep to strike.
It's the same ambush tactic.
It feels exactly like that ambush predator. They wait in the tall grass of social media or office politics. You
Hmm.
make one ambiguous comment or you show one moment of vulnerability and bam, they pounce.
And the damage is so
It
fast.
is. The destruction of your character, your livelihood, your ability to feed your family, it feels just as violent as a physical attack.
Because the psychological toll of severe character assassination really mimics the physiological terror of a physical hunt.
Your body reacts the same way, like we said at the start.
Yeah, it does. Furthermore, the text says the lion is dragging me away with no one to rescue.
That part is so sad to me.
It speaks to the profound isolation of being targeted by a smear campaign. When someone successfully assassinates your character, people distance themselves from you.
Right, nobody wants to get caught in the crossfire.
Exactly. You become socially radioactive, you feel entirely cut off, dragged into the dark, with no one willing to step in and save you.
And because the writer feels so physically and socially hunted, and the panic is setting in, he realizes he has to do something incredibly drastic before he can even ask for divine protection.
It is a jarring pivot in the text.
It really is.
Yeah.
He stops looking over his shoulder at the lion, and he looks inward. He realizes he cannot ask God to be his shield if he is actually the instigator of the crime.
This is a vital moment in the anatomy of a lament.
Why is that?
The focus shifts from the external threat to internal accountability.
Okay, yeah. Because we look at verses 3 through 5,
Mm.
and the writer puts a severe, shocking curse on himself.
He really lays it all out.
He does. He says, "If I have done this, let the enemy of my soul pursue and overtake me. Let him trample my life to the ground and lay my honor in the dust."
It's heavy.
He is basically saying, if the lies this guy Cush is telling are true, then let the lion eat me. I deserve it.
It is a massive escalation. He is pronouncing his own doom if he is guilty.
Which seems crazy to us today.
Well, the ancient writers took oaths incredibly seriously. To invoke a conditional curse upon yourself was to invite divine wrath if you were lying.
I was reading through the notes regarding this phrase, lay my honor in the dust. It is easy to read that and think he just means being humiliated, like getting pushed down in the dirt on a playground.
Oh, it's so much more than that.
Right, the biblical motif of the dust is much darker than getting your clothes dirty.
Far darker. The dust is a direct, pervasive reference to death and the grave throughout the ancient world.
Okay, where else do we see that?
You see this in Job 17.16, where Job talks about his hopes going down to the bars of the pit, descending together into the dust. You also see it in Daniel 12.2, talking about those who sleep in the dust of the earth.
So it literally means dead and buried.
Yes. To have your life trampled in the dust means to be killed, to be forgotten, to be reduced to absolute nothingness. It is the ultimate end of human existence.
He is inviting the very destruction he just prayed to be saved from.
Yes, he is.
You actually see this same extreme reaction in the story of Job.
Oh, absolutely.
When his friends falsely accused him of secret sins to try to explain his suffering, Job spent an entire chapter, Job 31, calling down a massive list of curses on himself if he was guilty of the things they accused him of.
It's this desperate all-or-nothing plea.
But I have to stop here and offer some serious pushback.
Go for it.
Reading this, I felt incredibly uncomfortable. How can anyone confidently ask an all-knowing God to judge them, knowing their own flaws?
It's a very fair question.
I mean, we all have skeletons in the closet. We all have things we have said or done that we regret. Inviting divine scrutiny feels like a massive risk.
It does.
It feels like standing in a thunderstorm holding a metal pole and saying, "Strike me if I'm wrong." You are just asking for the lightning to hit you.
I totally understand the discomfort there. It does feel incredibly risky. But we have to make a crucial distinction here regarding the nature of integrity in these texts.
Okay, what's the distinction?
The writer is not claiming lifelong, flawless sinlessness. He is not standing before the creator of the universe saying, I am a perfect human being who has never committed a wrong act in my entire life.
Right, because if he were doing that, the lightning would indeed strike.
Exactly. So what he is claiming,
Yeah, what does he claim?
he is claiming absolute innocence regarding this specific isolated charge. He is addressing the slander of Cush and only the slander of Cush.
Okay, so it is specific vindication versus general righteousness.
Spot on. In the theological framework operating here, there is a clear understanding that humans are deeply flawed and require divine grace.
Right.
However, in a human-to-human conflict, it is entirely possible for one party to be completely in the right and the other completely in the wrong.
That makes a lot of sense.
He is basically saying, I did not do what Cush is accusing me of. My hands are clean in the specific matter regarding this specific person.
Right, because he says, if there is wrong in my hands, if I've repaid my friend with evil or plundered my enemy without cause, he is giving the exact parameters of the accusation.
Yes.
Cush is likely saying David betrayed an ally or stole from someone, and David is saying, I never did that.
Yes. And because his conscience is clear on this specific localized issue, he has the theological confidence to put his own life on the line as collateral.
Wow.
He is betting his existence on the fact that he is telling the truth about this event. He knows his own heart regarding Cush, and so he invites the judge to look at the evidence.
And once he has put his own life on the line and proved his conscience is clear, his entire posture changes.
It's a dramatic shift.
He stops defending himself entirely. He stops explaining the situation. Instead, he suddenly feels justified to do something incredibly bold. He starts yelling at God to do his job.
He moves from a defensive posture to an offensive one, but his offensive strategy is entirely directed at the courtroom of heaven, not at his human enemy.
Which is such a crucial distinction.
It is. He does not take the sword to Cush. He takes his shouting to the judge.
Yeah, in verse 6, we get these urgent imperatives. He says, rise up, O Lord, in your anger. Awake for me.
That's awake for me.
Think about the raw audacity of that phrase. He is literally telling the creator of the universe to wake up.
Individual lament psalms frequently feature this dynamic.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
The sufferer is often in such agonizing pain, and the injustice has gone on for so long that they feel God is ignoring them.
Like he's just turning a blind eye.
They feel like the judge is sleeping in chambers while the courtroom is burning down. You see similar cries in Psalm 35 and Psalm 44, asking why God is hiding his face or sleeping.
That's fascinating.
It is a profoundly human reaction to prolonged suffering. When justice is delayed, it really feels like the judge is asleep.
I look at the unfiltered humanity of telling God to wake up, and it really challenges our modern sensibilities. Well, we often think prayer needs to be highly sanitized. We think we have to use the perfect vocabulary, keep our voices calm, and, present this polished version of ourselves.
We treat it like a formal business meeting.
Yes. But this guy is banging his fists on the bench. He is screaming at the judge.
And it actually demonstrates a highly robust theology, even if it sounds borderline disrespectful to our ears.
A robust theology.
Yes, because you do not scream at a statue. You do not demand action from an empty chair.
Right.
You scream at a person who you know has the ability to act, who has the authority to intervene, but seemingly hasn't done so yet.
Okay, I see.
The frustration is born entirely of faith. He knows God has commanded judgment. He knows God is capable of executing justice, which is precisely why he is petitioning him so violently to act.
He says in verse 8, vindicate me. He wants a public ruling. He wants the record set straight.
He wants his name cleared.
But then, right after he demands this ruling, verse 9 brings in a terrifying standard for what that ruling will entail.
This part is so crucial.
It says God tests the hearts and innermost being.
This is where perfect divine justice diverges completely from human justice.
Because human courts are limited.
Exactly. Human courts, no matter how advanced, can only judge external actions, witness testimonies, and physical evidence. A human judge cannot peer into the mind of the defendant.
They can't see what you were thinking.
Right. God's righteous judgment, however, involves judging the unseen thoughts, the hidden motives, the secret intentions.
We see this across the ancient texts, too. Like Jeremiah 11:20 talks about the Lord of hosts who judges righteously, who tests the heart and the mind.
Yeah.
God sees the motives behind the actions. He knows if you did the right thing for the wrong reason.
And this creates a fascinating psychological tension in the text.
Oh, for sure.
The writer is incredibly frustrated with a seemingly sleeping God. He wants action now, but he is simultaneously asking for an examination from a God who sees the innermost being.
Right.
He's inviting a level of scrutiny that goes far beyond just proving he didn't steal a physical object.
Let me try to visualize this. It feels like it's like you are banging on the doors of a courthouse because the judge is late for your hearing.
Okay, I like this analogy.
You are furious. You are demanding justice. You are yelling for them to open the doors. But you simultaneously know that once that judge arrives and sits down, they will have full, unrestricted access to the security footage of your very thoughts.
Wow. Yeah.
You are demanding justice, but you better be absolutely 100% sure you want that level of scrutiny. You better be sure your internal motives were as pure as your external actions.
That is a brilliant way to frame the tension. You are demanding the ultimate audit of your conflict.
The ultimate audit. I like that.
When the divine judge takes the bench, the verdict will be flawless because the evidence includes the hidden motives of the heart. You cannot spin a PR narrative before this judge.
No spinzo.
You cannot hire a clever lawyer to manipulate the facts. The judge sees the raw data of your soul.
So the urgent pounding on the courthouse doors finally gives way. The judge arrives. And the text provides this vivid, awe-inspiring description of what happens when the divine judge takes the bench. We see a sharp contrast in the divine images presented here in verses 10 through 16.
The imagery shifts entirely from the courtroom to the battlefield.
Yeah, verse 10 starts with a statement of comfort. He says, "My shield is with God, who saves the upright in heart." This is a pretty common symbol of protection in ancient literature.
It is, and a shield does one very specific thing. It absorbs the blow intended for the soldier.
Right?
It stands between the vulnerable soft tissue of the human body and the sharp edge of the weapon. By calling God his shield, the writer is acknowledging that he cannot absorb the attack himself. For the righteous, God is defensive, structural protection.
But then right after establishing that defensive protection, the imagery flips entirely.
It gets very aggressive.
Yeah, God is not just a shield. He is an active warrior. Verse 11 says he is a God who has indignation every day.
Which is a heavy concept.
It is. And verse 12 paints this terrifying picture. If a man does not repent, God will whet his sword. He has bent and readied his bow.
We see this warrior imagery in texts like Deuteronomy 32, painting the Creator as a mighty warrior attacking the unrepentant.
Right.
But we really need to pause on that phrase, indignation every day. In some translations, it says, he feels wrath every day.
Okay, explain that.
It means the righteous anger against wicked deeds is constant. It is not a sudden temper tantrum. It is not a mood swing. It is the steady, unyielding reaction of perfect holiness to injustice.
I like to think of it as the allergic reaction of justice to corruption.
Oh, that's good.
Like a healthy immune system attacks a virus instantly and constantly. It doesn't tolerate the virus on Tuesdays and attack it on Wednesdays. Perfect justice must constantly reject injustice.
That's a really solid way to put it. And the weapon is drawn to deal with that corruption. The sword is sharpened, the foot is on the bow, bending the wood, pulling the string back. The arrow is nocked and pointed directly at the offender.
I have to ask a probing question regarding the role of repentance here.
Go ahead.
The text explicitly says, if a man does not repent, the sword is sharpened. How does the availability of this off-ramp change the perception of the warrior god?
What do you mean?
Because to me, it shows the warrior's attack is completely avoidable. It paints a picture of a god who actually desires mercy over execution.
That is the crux of the entire passage. The drawn sword is not a blind execution without warning. It is a conditional threat.
If a man does not repent.
Exactly. The tension is drawn tight, just like the string of the bow, but the release of the arrow is entirely dependent on the human response.
So the off-ramp is there.
The off-ramp is always available. The slanderer, Cush, could stop spreading lies, turn around, and the bow would be unstrung.
It makes the impending judgment entirely self-inflicted if they refuse to turn around. The warning is clear. The weapon is visible. If you keep charging forward into the sharpened sword, you chose your own destruction.
You really did.
Which brings us to verse 14, where the writer moves away from the battlefield and uses this incredible graphic biological metaphor to describe the anatomy of evil.
This part is fascinating.
He says, "Behold, the wicked man conceives evil and is pregnant with mischief and gives birth to lies."
You find a very similar parallel over in Job chapter 15, highlighting the exact same images of conception and birth used to describe wickedness.
Right.
We need to spend significant time unpacking this biological metaphor because it fundamentally changes how we view sin and injustice in our daily lives.
Yeah, wickedness is not portrayed here as a sudden accident. It is not slipping on a banana peel or tripping over a rock.
Yeah.
You do not accidentally ruin someone's life.
No, you do not. The biological imagery forces us to recognize the timeline of malice. It is conceived. It starts as a microscopic seed, a fleeting thought, a momentary desire.
Like maybe it is a flash of envy when a coworker gets a promotion.
Right. Then, instead of discarding that thought, the person nurtures it in the dark. It just stays.
It grows over time.
It grows over time, feeding on the person's internal resources. And finally, after a long period of development, it is painfully birthed into reality.
So by the time Cush, our Benjaminite slanderer, actually opened his mouth to destroy David's reputation in public. That lie has been gestating for weeks, maybe months.
Oh, without a doubt.
It grew from a seed of jealousy or political ambition or sheer pride. He sat in his tent, feeding the resentment, letting it grow until he could not contain it anymore.
The biological imagery shows that evil has a life cycle. And just like human birth, bringing that evil into the world involves labor, effort, and pain.
So it's not effortless.
Not at all. The wicked person works incredibly hard to produce their lies. They expend massive amounts of energy plotting, whispering, organizing their smear campaign. It is an exhausting process to give birth to malice.
And the poetic justice of verse 15 is the climax of this whole exhausting process. After all that labor, after giving birth to this destructive lie, the text says, and I love this, he makes a pit, digging it out, and falls into the hole that he has made.
We see this theme repeatedly in ancient wisdom literature. Proverbs 26 talks about whoever digs a pit falling into it. Psalm 141 talks about letting the wicked fall into their own nets.
It's like a cartoon villain. They spend all this time and energy digging a trap for the righteous. They are sweating, shoveling the dirt, camouflaging the hole with leaves, waiting for their victim to walk by.
But they end up at the bottom of it themselves.
The insight here regarding the dual nature of God's judgment is fascinating.
Let's hear it.
Well, sometimes, as we saw earlier, judgment is the active strike of the warrior with the sharpened sword. The bow is released.
Yes.
But other times, perhaps most times, judgment is simply allowing the wicked to fall into the very pit they dug themselves. The judgment is intrinsic to the sin itself. The evil they birthed turns around and consumes them.
It is a self-induced destruction that functions simultaneously as divine judgment.
Yeah, God does not have to push them into the pit. He just removes his restraining grace and, like his gravity, do the work. The sheer weight of their own malice pulls them under.
Their elaborate schemes become their own prisons.
So we have mapped out the terrifying fate of the unrepentant. We see the trap of their own making, the exhaustion of birthing evil, the sharpened sword waiting for those who refuse the off-ramp of repentance.
It's quite a journey through this text.
It is. And then the lament reaches its conclusion. But the ending is really jarring. The focus shifts entirely away from the earthly enemies, away from the pit, away from the lion.
It is an abrupt, total reorientation of the human mind. The writer just stops looking at the horizon entirely.
In verse 17, the final sentence of the text, he says, I will give to the Lord the thanks due to his righteousness, and I will sing praise to the name of the Lord the Most High. He breaks out into a song of gratitude.
And the specific Hebrew name used here is highly significant, Yahweh Elyon. It translates to Yahweh the Most High.
Why use that specific exalted title right at the very end of a song about a political smear campaign?
It stresses supreme, unrivaled rule and authority over the earth. When you acknowledge God as Elyon, you are stating definitively that no one sits higher on the organizational chart of reality.
Okay, I see.
Cush does not have the final say. The tribal leaders of Benjamin do not have the final say. Even King Saul does not have the final say.
The Most High holds the ultimate authority.
Yes, and his courtroom is the only one that issues binding verdicts.
We actually see this pattern in many individual laments, anticipating a favorable response before the issue is even resolved.
Right, they count it as done.
The writer bases his entire confidence on the character of the judge, knowing that righteous justice will eventually punish wickedness and vindicate the innocent.
But look at the massive mental shift that has occurred. This is the entire point of the text. When the song ends, the physical, geographical circumstances have not changed one bit.
That's wild to think about. The lion is still out there in the tall grass.
The pursuers are still actively tracking him. The pit is still dug in his path. The slanderer, Cush, is still standing in the city square spreading lies.
Yeah.
But the writer's internal state has completely shifted from absolute panic to calm, assured praise.
The text starts out with a man running for his life from a lion, hyperventilating to an erratic melody, and it ends with him singing a song of gratitude.
It's beautiful.
The outward reality is exactly the same, but his perspective has been completely relocated to the throne room of heaven.
Recognizing the Most High as the supreme ruler provides total mental closure before the physical battle is even resolved. He knows the judge has taken the bench.
He knows the hidden evidence of the heart is seen.
Yes, he knows the sword is sharpened for the unrepentant, and the shield is securely in place for the righteous. The outcome is so certain in his mind that he can begin the victory song while still standing in the mud of the battlefield.
Man, that requires an incredible amount of mental and spiritual discipline.
It really does. It is the discipline of trusting a sovereign judge who sees everything, rather than trusting your own ability to control the narrative.
So what does this all mean for us today? Let's recap the progression of our discussion.
Okay, let's trace the steps.
We started with the sheer biological terror of the predator, the feeling of being hunted and isolated by false accusations in a hostile environment.
Then we examined the severe oath of innocence, the willingness to invite the dust of death if found guilty of the specific charge, showing a clear conscience before heaven.
We looked at the raw, unfiltered demands for a sleeping judge to awaken and bring perfect justice to the innermost thoughts.
We studied the exhausting anatomy of self-destructing evil, how it is conceived in the mind, nurtured in the dark, and birthed through labor, only to dig a pit that traps its creator.
And finally, we saw the absolute trust in the Most High, the supreme ruler, allowing a radical shift to praise before the earthly conflict even reaches its conclusion.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
It is. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your week. We live in an era where public vindication is demanded instantly.
Oh, constantly.
If someone attacks you on social media or whispers about you in the break room, the immediate urge is to fire off a response, to rally your own mob, to dig a massive pit for your opponent to fall into.
That's the default setting we talked about.
Exactly. So consider the massive discipline required to hit pause on that instinct for retaliation. Consider what it takes to hand your defense over to an unseen judge who tests the innermost being.
It is the hardest thing in the world to stay silent when you are being hunted.
It really is. So ask yourself, are you spending your precious energy digging pits for your opponents, hoping they fall in? Or are you resting securely behind the ultimate shield, confident that the Most High has already evaluated the evidence?
That's a great question to reflect on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been a highly engaging conversation.
Keep wrestling with these ancient texts. Keep seeking that supreme justice, and we will catch you next time on Reformed Thinking.